Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am your host and New Zealand wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Today on the podcast, I'm chatting with the lovely Hannah. You may know Hannah from Instagram or TikTok, where she documents her life in Mount Maunganui with her husband and daughter Winnie. She is a stay-at-home mum and previously created and owned the brand Real Rad Food. Today we chat through her wedding and love story, how she was intentional with using local vendors, setting a budget and how she tracked that, how she found it a bit exhausting juggling wedding planning with motherhood and career, all the details from her beautiful day and some amazing advice as well. Yet again, you guys are going to love this one, so make sure you listen all the way through and jump on over to Instagram at the Kiwi Wedding Podcast to see some of Hannah's wedding photos photographed by the talented Erica Jane Photography. And you'll find all the links to the vendors in the show notes and on Instagram as well. Enjoy episode 36 with Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. So excited to chat to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
To get started with, if you could just tell me a bit about you and your partner, how you guys met and your life together.
Mac and I met, Mac and I got together about 5 years ago, but we were in the same year at school. We didn't go to the same school, but, ran around in the same circles, were in the same bars and whatnot when we were in our high school years, when we were 18. So knew of each other for ages. I went away to uni. He was working locally, but after uni, I came back to the Bay and we ended up seeing each other at some gig. And he was with his younger sisters, and I just remember being pretty tipsy and looking across the sort of the sea of people and just seeing this really tall guy and being like, oh, that's that Matt guy. But basically we ended up matching on Bumble a few days after that gig because we sort of had a little wave to each other at the gig, you know how it goes. And then the dating app was the thing that actually got us to talking, and basically went on our first date a couple of maybe weeks after we had started chatting online, and then the rest was really history. But so Mac works in supermarkets. I am a stay-at-home mum at the moment. We have a daughter who is nearly 1, and a little dog, Koopy, who's sitting right beside me, that is now 4 years old. Yeah, so that's a bit about us, I suppose.
Oh, so cool. And so you dated for a while and then got engaged. And can you tell us a bit about the proposal story, how that all went down?
Yeah, so we got engaged 2 years ago. No, 3? A while ago, I suppose. 3 years maybe, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 3. But basically we were in Whangamata on with my entire family, and we had been for a few walks to a bay called Octopus Bay, which is just in Onimana, 10 minutes outside of Whangamata, and we had taken Cooper there a few times, and Max suggested that we should go there one morning that we were in Whanga. And basically we walked down to the bay, and once we got down the bottom, he was being he was basically, I think his nervous response was he started talking in baby talk, and I sort of clicked on to what was happening, and I was like, Max, stop with the baby talk. Let's get serious here. But he was so nervous that was what he reverted to, which is so funny. But dropped the knee, and then after that, we had a big bottle of bubbles. We basically had the whole bay to ourselves. And we just drank a big, we didn't drink the whole thing, but we had this big magnum bottle of bubbles from Amersfield Winery down in Queenstown. Then we got back to the batch, and a whole lot of our family and closest friends were there, and we celebrated with them for the rest of the weekend, and it was so fun.
Such a cute story. And I know the spot, nice little private beach. So, yeah, really special. And had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about her wedding and knew what you wanted? And what was kind of the vision and vibe when you started planning and, yeah, choosing your venue, first steps?
I think, like, I was very keen to get married, but I was never really super. I was keen to be married, but I didn't really know what that looked like. Wasn't like super. I wasn't keen to get married because of the wedding day. I just wanted to be married to Mac, you know. Um, but I think that I always knew that I would have a pretty substantial, like mostly traditional wedding, just because that is what so many people in my family and extended family have done. So yeah, basically I just started planning a traditional sort of wedding with no real idea of what that was going to look like, but I knew that I wanted it to be local. And I always did think that I wanted a big clear marquee. So yeah, I don't even really remember the question that you asked me, but basically I knew I wanted to be married, but I wasn't super, I didn't have an idea of exactly what the wedding would look like once we got engaged.
Yeah, sure. And did you look at a few different venues or, yeah, how did you find your one?
We only looked at one, and that was the one that we ended up going for. But I did look at a few online. Whangamata is obviously a super special place to us because we have like a generational home batch there that's been, you know, my dad went there when he was a kid, X, Y, and Z. So I loved the idea of getting married in Whangamata. And I toyed with the idea of putting a clear marquee at the front of our beach house, but a few of my cousins had done a marquee, sort of a much lower key ceremony reception at the batch. And from what I heard, it just sounded like a super stressful thing to do at the batch because, I mean, like, the kitchen wasn't set up and all those things. So I was like, okay, well, why don't we explore Hillbrook Estate, which is just outside of Whangamata? But for us, like, a really big one was we really wanted to get married around, you know, the 20th week of December. And so I knew that that was my top priority. And in order to go to Hillbrook around that time, you had to sort of have it for like 4 nights or something. And it was super expensive. In retrospect, it might have ended up being cheaper than what we actually did because we basically had to take a whole wedding venue to a plot of grass. But at the time, I was like, no, like $40,000 or whatever it was, that's outrageous. So we didn't end up even going up there to look. I also knew that people getting accommodation in Whangamata around the 20th week of December would be really niggly. It was even niggly for them to do in Tauranga. But basically, we came back to the idea of, you know, most of our people are from Tauranga, or they know people that they can stay with in Tauranga, or Tauranga is a big enough place that people can get an Airbnb. So it was then figuring out where we were going to have it here. We toyed with the idea of some land that Mac's family leases for horses, but it was just a bit too up in the air in terms of like them still having that lease in another 2 years' time, which was when we planned to get married. So basically, I was like, let's go check out 99 Palms because one of my good friends had got married there. I didn't really know her that well when she got married there. So as we got closer to the wedding, and Lauren and I, who was the person who I had seen photos of get married there, got a lot closer. She actually ended up working for me for a while and then, you know, became very good friends. I was like, it's kind of super weird that I'm copying your entire wedding now, but it wasn't back then when we planned the whole thing. Anyways, so we went out to 99 Palms and it was just so beautiful. And so we just locked it in then and there. Um, and then with that, we locked in our marquee and furniture, you know, food, a few of the other big things. And so that locking in those big things all happened before we then fell pregnant in August of 2 years ago or something. But I think that that's like an important piece to add in because I think that we would have maybe done things differently if we hadn't have paid so many deposits prior to falling pregnant. Keeping in mind that the pregnancy was planned.
Yeah. So it was always the plan to have like 2 years and then,
Well, basically with the pregnancy, I was sort of like, so we had locked in, or we had the date, we had locked in, we had paid quite a bit of money in deposits for the wedding. And I was like, Mac and I had a conversation of like, we either try for like maybe 4 months, and if we fall pregnant, great, she'll be like 8 months old at the wedding, that'll be perfect, it'll be fine. Or if we don't fall pregnant, it takes us a while longer, we'll just stop trying and use protection again, and then try once the wedding is done, because otherwise it'll be too close together. But basically we were very lucky to fall pregnant quickly, and so I was like, okay, so we're going to have a baby and then we're going to get married. And I think the closer the wedding got, and then when's arrival, my priorities just shifted a lot.
yeah, oh, that's good perspective to chat about. And yeah, what were your sort of priorities when it came to the wedding with yeah, different vendors or vibe, all of that? What were the most important things?
Yeah, like I said, I really always loved the idea of a clear marquee. So spending money on that was important to me. But I think our biggest priority was food. I love food. I'm such a foodie. I have known, we use No Biggie Catering, and they just do the most amazing food. I've known those guys for so many years. They used to have a noodle stand that would sit beside my market stall at the little big markets where I would sell real red food in those early years. So then they have their catering company on the side of that, and we had been to a few of their lunch. They basically hold a lunch at the start of every wedding season for their couples of that season, and like I went to one just as like a friend of theirs, and it was the best day. And they just make amazing food. We've had it at a few other weddings, and I just knew that that was going to be like a main priority for us. Other than that, I think being able to invite the people that we wanted to invite was a pretty big priority, for not so much myself, but probably for my family as well. Like I could have been way more ruthless, but I really respected the fact what my parents' wishes as well, because my parents did help us out financially to some degree. So it was important to keep that in mind. And it was important for me to have them, happy with who was coming. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And can you tell me about your wedding outfits? Your dress was stunning. And how was that process finding it or getting it made? Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the last question, and it'll tie in with this one, like working with local vendors was super important for us. And it was like so cool. Like we got our wedding bands from Guy's Gold. He literally lives like 200 meters down the road from us. And then my dress was made by Lulu Jackson Bridal. And she is, 5 minutes down the other way towards the mount. So I worked alongside her. I didn't actually end up trying any, off the wet rack wedding dresses on. Just because I am the type of person that maybe if I tried something on, like I started the process with her, paid my deposit. So I was like, I'm getting it made with Lulu. She even said to me, like, you should go try some on at boutiques just to see what you like. But I was concerned I'd try something on and fall in love with it, and then get all mentally a bit stressed out that I just wanted to get that one. So I didn't even do the whole trying on thing, which is like a little bit of a regret, because it would have been fun to do with like my mum or my bridesmaids. But my bridesmaids were also all over the world. So I just was also, baby and whatnot. I just sort of tried to go the easy route with a lot of things. But basically, I loved all the Vivienne Westwood sort of style dresses. I wanted like a cinched in waist. I liked the idea of a corset, and then I love the silk that Lulu uses. It's just such like a buttery, creamy silk. Um, and the evolution of the dress. I mean, the finished product was very similar to what we sort of started looking at. But we did chop and change a little bit as we went throughout the process. I basically ended up having like a bit of a bridal wardrobe, was what Lulu called it, and it was so fun. So I had the first layer was like a sort of, it was the sleeves, but it was like a top underneath, and then over that went the corset. So that all came together, and then, or bustier, I don't know what it's called, and it basically cinched in at the back with some, I don't know, what is it called, like ties. And then I had a big full skirt, and then there was a second skirt that came later on in the night that was like a mini.
So nice to have all those different looks, and yeah, to be able to like change it up a little bit. Yeah, bridal wardrobe. I love that. And yeah, using local vendors as well. Such a good one. You're very lucky with some amazing people in the Bay. And yeah, all around New Zealand, we actually have some amazing wedding vendors. And I know that some people choose to go overseas to find their dress and stuff like that. But yeah, there's some really local talent. So look down the road or in your city if you can. That's a great tip. Who was in your bridal party? Did you find that quite an easy process choosing them?
Yeah, I was super lucky with that because I have like three best friends that, like, they're my three best friends that anyone could have. But yeah, I was very lucky that it was pretty, as soon as, I've always known that they would always be my bridesmaids, and three is a really good number. So then I basically said to Matt, "You're gonna have to pick three blokes." And it was a little bit more challenging for him picking three because, you know, he's got quite a big friend group. And yeah, but he got there in the end. And yeah, so we each had three. I didn't have a maid of honor, I just had my bridesmaids, and they were all very special and fabulous on the day. It's a pretty big job.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And you touched on it a little bit already, but yeah, how did you find the guest list as well? Was that quite hard to narrow down?
Yeah, I think like when we went to like really narrow down the guest list, I think it all started adding up, and that's when I was like, this thing is going to be like real expensive. And then I was kind of like, I want to cut the numbers down to like, you know, 100 or below. And then it was conversations with, you know, Mac and my family, and a lot of emotion, and well, not a lot of emotion, but you just don't want to, it's like, you just don't want to rock the boat. I couldn't be bothered rocking the boat, but we ended up, I was like, we have to draw the line at 120 because if we went over 120, like, we had to get all these additional things at the venue, and it was going to be a lot more expensive. And 120, just in terms of like the food and drink per head, it was just, we can't, I was like, this is outrageous. So we drew the line at 120, but it ended up being that we had 114 people there, just with people that couldn't make it and overseas people and whatnot. But yeah, I have like three sides of my family. I have my mum, and then my stepmom, and then my dad, because my dad remarried, my mum passed away. So there's like three sides of my family, which made it like, I think I had like 73 and Mac had the remaining. So I had slightly more. But he was sweet with that because he understands like the circumstance. And yeah, we didn't have to be too ruthless.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a tricky one, but yeah, wanting to kind of like respect and honor family as well. And then yeah, sounds like you came to a bit of a sweet spot there, and that's like a good number as well. And can you just tell us a bit about the big day? How did it all go down? And yeah, any highlights or favorite moments?
Yeah, so Mac was with his groomsmen, you know, playing golf and getting ready for about an hour before they got to the venue or something. But us girls, on the other hand, we were up at 6:30 because we did do a first look, so we had to be ready pretty early on in the day. So up at 6:30, the girls stayed at my house. It was just like a lot easier because we had my daughter Winnie here with us too. So got up, you know, did fed Winnie, gave her breakfast. Us girls got in our little pajamas. We used Daredevil pajamas, and they were so cute. And we, had coffees and toast. Hair and makeup was here at about 7 o'clock. And that was, I loved my morning with my girls because one of them's in London, two of them are in Sydney, and so it's very rare that we're all together. So it was just so nice to be in the house and just, having some bubbles and getting all glam. It was very bizarre because, the photographer came and she also brought like a girl to do sort of home video style video that was like a bit of like a last minute. She just asked if we wanted it because she was trying to promote it as a service. And I was like, yeah, awesome. But we also had Bad Panda videographers videoing the day. So we had like two photographers, a videographer, two hair and makeup people, my bridesmaids. Winnie was here. Winnie's babysitter was here. My mum came to get her makeup done, and it did feel quite chaotic at one point. I was just like, holy. I remember going into my bedroom to feed Win because she gets so distracted by everything now, and I was like, I need to get this baby fed, but this, you feel like you're like Kim Kardashian or something. It's wild. But basically all of hair and makeup got done, and then the girls helped me get into my dress, which was so exciting. Because yeah, there was obviously so many components of it, and they just, yeah, it was a really cool moment to be all glam and then see it all come together. And then we basically um all right, we left, and I just thought my friend's mum has like a beautiful Range Rover, so that was what we were going to go in the wedding to, which was going to be like so fab and luxe. But I walk out and there's like a Rolls Royce white ribbon and all of the things wedding car that the girls had organized, and that was like such a cool surprise because I really had no idea that they had done that. It had like fluffy carpets and there was like bubbles, and then we were off to the venue singing, what is the song, like gonna get married, I don't know, my friend Rachel was just
Going
singing
to
that
the
the whole time.
chapel.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and that was that.
Oh, so good. And how did the day go from there? So you went off to photos first?
Yep. So we pulled into 99 Palms, and the boys were standing there waiting. And then Mac and I had some photos, and then we got photos with the bridal party. And then we had like a drink, and then it was time for us girls to go and hide away in this little room that was at the venue. And, Mac and the groomsmen greeted everyone as they started to arrive. And then my dad came up, and I did like a little bit of a first look with my dad, which was super special. Winnie arrived, and I saw her, and then she was given to my friend Rachel because Rachel walked down the aisle first, and she carried Winnie down. So we had the ceremony. Our celebrant was actually a training midwife, and she was like my midwife's sort of like trainee, and she was the first person to ever find Winnie's heartbeat with an ultrasound, and she was actually and she was on her placement in the hospital while I was in labor, so she was like my nurse when I was in labor too. So that was a really special part of our day, having her be our celebrant. And then we did a few family photos. It was something I was really not keen to stand around doing. I'm not sure if I offended any groups of people by not getting a group shot, but like that's just so boring to me. I'm not going to stand here.
Can be a punish that time. It actually drags a lot. Like when people give me this massive list for as a photographer, I'm like, you're going to be like standing there for an hour with this. Like, trim
A
it
hundred.
down.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to be herding these cats around that just want to be drinking and talking. So I was like, immediate family, all of the oldies that are there, and then that's pretty much it. And then classic on the day, I did have a few, oldies being like, oh, can we get a group with the, I was just like, yeah, yeah, whatever. But I said to my younger brother, I was like, you're going to help us with these photos. And I just like got so, I was like, Blair, go get that person. I'm like, I'm not standing here. Like, I'm here to be with my people, not to stand taking these group photos that we're like never going to look at.
Oh, it's, yeah, not the favorite part of the day, is it?
No, so we took very few of them, and then basically, yeah, it was just we had like canapes come out, and then we headed into the reception part of the evening, like did the big entrance where we all ran in. And did half of the speeches. Dinner was served. The other half of the speeches then went. All the speeches were amazing. We also tried to keep those pretty short, but I love hearing. I love going to people's weddings and listening to the speeches, and I loved hearing ours as well. So really was excited for that part of the night, and it was really amazing. But once the second half of the speeches were done, we had our first dance, which was like actually a surprise choreographed dance, which was crack up. I couldn't think of anything worse than like, because Mac is actually quite like a lovey, like not PDA, but like he would have taken it so seriously. I know he would have. He would have been like staring into my eyes, and I was like, I'm just so awkward. I can't do that. So I was like, I would prefer to learn like it started off with some Ed Sheeran song, and then we like ripped his jacket off and we did a whole thing, which was super funny, and everyone loved it. But I like pulled my hip socket because I couldn't walk for like 2 days afterwards, hardly. Anyways, and then it was party time, and yeah.
Oh, so fun. Sounds like such a cool day. And yeah, I love that you did the first look. I definitely find that kind of makes the day run a bit smoother sometimes, that you don't have to leave your guests waiting for ages, that you can just, yeah, go straight into that like canapes cocktail time with them and stay there, flow through to the reception.
Yeah, like I think if you're spending, I just remember the main reason we did that was because of Win. Um, and I just wanted to be able to get some photos with her straight after the ceremony and then have her sort of shoot off home. Um, but I think like you spend so much money on a day, why not have the day start at midday with your partner and make it a longer day? In saying that, we actually left our wedding at like 10:30, 11, because I was done. I was like, I was so like just tired, and I'd sort of reached my end. And maybe if we hadn't have started so early, I wouldn't have been done early. But I mean, it was what it was. Also, like we did our hens the week. I did my hens the weekend prior, and it was like a massive weekend. And I hadn't been drinking for like 18 months prior to that, really, because I just like been pregnant and had this baby. And so it was just a whirlwind, man. And I was very drained by it all because I'm actually quite like an introverted person. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, massive time. And I guess was that doing the hens because you had people coming from overseas, so keeping it all together. And then you're right before Christmas as well, so that would have been a very busy month.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I would have, although I so wanted it to be on that 20th week of December because I wanted the vibes to be like everyone's finishing work. It's like kicking off that busy, fun, celebratory time of the year. Um, it was a lot, and especially like parenting at 8 months old, where like you don't just get to like sleep in the day after. It was quite exhausting, to be totally honest.
Oh, absolutely. Fair enough. And yeah, what did you find the hardest part about wedding planning, the whole process? And is there anything, you've touched on a few, but is there anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
Well, see, what I think I realized through the wedding process is I'm like not a big attention to detail person. So like locking in the big stuff was like easy as, but when it came to all the little things, and like I would have conversations with friends that were planning weddings, and like they were so attention to detail focused, and I just for a while there did not want to talk about weddings with people because then it would just like add to my list of things that I had to do. So I I want to say that I wish that I got a wedding planner, but then the wedding planners were so expensive, and I was also getting stressed out about how we were just spending so much and so much. So there's a part of me that, I mean, I obviously don't regret the day at all, but I think that like in another world, Mac and I and Win would have gone to Europe and maybe just got married, or we would have just had like our immediate family and done something totally different. I think that in the beginning, I always envisioned myself having a very, traditional wedding. But I think that I should have realized that there's like no rules on this and you can just do whatever you want. I mean, I loved our wedding day, but I also could have seen it and be done for us in a totally different way. Um, and I'm just not sure if like, just because, yeah, I'm not, I don't actually, hosting lots of people at my house stresses me out. Like, being out of routine stresses me out. So like it all just like didn't make sense in the end. But it was a great day. But I was pretty like I was digging my head into the sand because I just couldn't. I was, learning how to breastfeed. I was learning how to give my child solid foods. I wasn't thinking about the logistics of when the marquee was going to get erected and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It is like a massive event, and if you're someone that, yeah, your social battery kind of drains quite quickly, or yeah, a bit of a introvert, need to like recharge, then it is a lot, and it's like all the attention on you and everyone wants a piece of you, which is like lovely having everyone you love in the same place, but exhausting as well. And I can imagine being a parent too, it's just another level as well.
Yeah, and I mean the day itself is not like a relaxing day. You're like catching up with like 120 people, many of whom you haven't seen for ages. You've just welcomed your first baby, so everyone's like, it was like a lot. And I would, yeah. It's also like, then you've got people there that are like your high school mates that you're just like, you just want to stand in the corner with all night long because like you haven't seen them in so long. You just want to like party with them, but it's just like, oh, better go see, you've got to get around the whole room. So the day is not about you at all. It's actually about making sure that everyone has like had a chat with you.
Yeah, so true. It's definitely yeah, can see the case for having smaller numbers and a bit easier to get around everyone, even though yeah, you're pretty standard numbers around that 120 mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, can be overwhelming for sure.
Mm.
Did you guys have a budget you were working with, if you're happy to talk about like a ballpark figure with that, and how you ended up going? Did it go over? And yeah, what was your experience there?
Yeah, I remember like and we never had like a set budget, but there was like a ballpark figure. So my brother got married in like 2018 or something. And he did a very traditional 120-person wedding at a venue, and I think it was like around like the 35K mark. And I was like, wow, inflation has gone up massively since then. Like I'd be stoked if we could keep it below like 50. And then my dad, was like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, well, Dad, seriously, we're not going to get it. Like, it's just, that's how much weddings are these days. They've gone up massively. Anyways, ended up spending about 75.
Mm.
And we didn't have the best of the best of many things. We didn't have a cake. My mum literally made carrot cakes for our dessert option. Um, but 75 included everything. That included our wedding bands. We had a band, a two-person band for all the things. Um, that didn't even include. So Mac's mum's a florist, and we had amazing florals. So Mac's mum did those for us. So the 75 didn't even include florals. So it was just outlandish.
It does add up, and I think especially with the weddings where, like you say, you're doing it on a piece of grass and you're bringing in the marquee and you're bringing in everything, people are like, oh, we'll just do it ourselves, like it'll be cheaper, but it can often be more expensive that way.
Yeah, and that was what made it more expensive.
Yeah. Sounds like, yeah, you're pretty realistic with the, yeah, how much you think it will cost, but it always, well, most people I chat to, it ends up being a bit more than you thought. And yeah, it's all those little things that add up. And so you guys were, I guess, like rolling straight into Christmas, but did you go on honeymoon, or are you still planning that? What did that look like?
So yeah, we went to Whangamata straight after the wedding, but it wasn't really a honeymoon because my whole family was there, and we all got COVID. And I was also like, I was like in full mum mode out of my home, which was quite. And I don't know, I think I was just so burnt out. But it was like a really nice Christmas to have in Whanga. Yeah, with the wedding just like being so expensive, I was just like, we're not going to book anything in at the moment. I think it just like depends on quite a few things for us in terms of like Mac's career. If we go on a honeymoon this year, um I mean, it would be really awesome. I would love to actually do like a few weeks in Europe for summer, maybe around like the June July time period, but we're just going to have to wait and see about that. We have nothing locked in, and to be honest, I'm not like overly stressed about getting away on a honeymoon. I would rather not have the financial pressure of that looming over us at the moment, just because I'm stay-at-home mumming and Mac's sort of in this transition phase of his career. But basically, if we find out if some things happen in Mac's career, then we'd be able to make it work. But at the moment, there's no pressure on it. I'm not overly stressed to go on a honeymoon. We've done plenty of cool things in the past 5 years. And I'm just actually keen to just like relax and be in our environment and just like enjoy our time here and now, because it's just been crazy. Last year was a crazy, crazy year from us, like for us, like sold a business, welcomed a baby, heaps of stuff happened in Mac's career, and then we got married, and it was crazy.
Just so many massive milestones all in that year. So totally understandable. And you can always plan something down the track and have that to look forward to as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And were there any helpful websites or resources, different apps that you used during the planning process that were helpful or helped you find vendors, anything like that?
Not really. Like I had like for all of our big vendors, I knew who I wanted. Um and then like I just had an Excel spreadsheet, and I am very in terms of like money and figures, like I everything went on that spreadsheet. So when I say we spent 75 grand, we didn't spend a cent over sort of thing. Like everything was included. And then in terms of like guests and like invitations, dietary requirements, RSVPs was just another spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet girl. So yeah, I kind of just from my time with owning a Real Red Food, I kind of had I mean, Real Red Food was not involved in the wedding industry at all, but for some reason I knew heaps of wedding industry people. So didn't not none that come top of mind, no.
Yeah, it is, I guess, small businesses and food. Like, yeah, you kind of had a lot of connections. And yeah, I think I remember seeing you years ago at one of the Wild Hearts fairs or something like that. So, yeah, you just sort of get those connections through business, which is super helpful. And yeah, New Zealand's such a nice small place and good networks. Yeah, do you have any advice that you would give to couples that are planning their wedding at the moment?
Yeah, I would just say like have like a really long hard think about like what you want. Like what you want and like your personality types as a couple and what you're going to actually enjoy to do on the day. I'd also say like if we were in a privileged position of being able to afford that wedding. But do you know what would have made it worse was if we were spending money that we didn't really have, or like I'm very grateful to, like we have our home and that sort of thing. But for me, if we didn't have a home, I would have felt so much more conflicted spending that money on a wedding. So we were lucky to have done some of those things earlier on in our lives in order to like allocate funds to the wedding. But just like have a really hard think about like where you want your money to be spent at this time in your life, because it is so hard out there. And I think that a wedding can be so beautiful without it, taking away your ability to buy a house, because that is what it would do for many. Um, and I think it's really important to like respect families' wishes, but also like if I had done something like just immediate family, my parents would have been like sweet as, but we weren't able to like, that if we were going to do like an 80-person wedding, that was where it like kind of got a bit gnarly with certain people coming and certain people not coming. So like pick your side of the fence and kind of like really embrace that, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, it can often end up being either this or that, the big or small. And yeah, that's great advice to kind of think about not just this one day, but the future of your relationship and your goals, like what you guys want to do. And yeah, with like travel, buying a house and all of that, and definitely don't go into debt for all your wedding day. I feel like
It would.
that happens more than you think, but yeah, not wise.
I mean, personally, for me, that sends shivers down my spine. But I guess each to their own. But even yeah, us spending that, I might imagine the other things that we could have done. But whatever.
Yeah, no regrets though. Amazing day.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day, and um, I know that as more time passes, I will even actually look at it more fondly as time goes on. I just think that last year was such a whirlwind, that last summer was such a whirlwind that I'm like still kind of recovering. So I hope this doesn't come across that I'm ungrateful for the position that I'm in or anything like that. But I just think that I was personally surprised by how stressful the planning process was for me and how actually overwhelming the week and the lead up and the actual day was itself for me.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. And what is married life like now? So getting a little bit more back into routine. And yeah, do you feel like you got any of those post-wedding blues?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like, no, literally, I just feel like I can breathe.
Relief.
Like, thank God it's over, is how I felt in the days after, and even more so now. Like, I had ordered thank you cards, and they sat there for so long. And then maybe 2 weeks ago, I just sat here and I wrote all the thank yous. I took them to the post shop, and I was like, that's the last thing I'm ever doing for this freaking wedding ever again. I'm never having another one. Like, it's done. It's done. I'm closing the chapter. So no, I feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off my shoulders, because I also felt like last year, like every additional penny and every, like, I felt the financial stress of making sure we had funds that were available to that. So it's nice to just know that our money is our money again. And we can save it and do with it what we need to do with it. And yeah, it's just like I had like, to be open and honest, like I said to friends, like the wedding planning process just felt like I had this dark cloud over my head every day, because I would, yeah, dig my head into the sand trying to ignore that it was there, just like procrastinating a university assignment. And then, so now I just feel like I'm on like summer break and I don't have a care in the world and I'm just living my best life, not thinking about weddings anymore. And I went to going to your first wedding as a guest after your own is so fucking blissful. Like, I was just like looking around so appreciative of everything they had done, talking to the people that I wanted to talk to, just like chilling out, having a mean time. And so we've got another one down in Queenstown in a few months, and I'm just so excited. And yeah, you just have such an appreciation for the lengths that people go to for their own weddings, and being a guest is such a real privilege and honor. But yeah, no wedding blues for me. I'm just out here living my best life, and yeah, it's great.
So good. That's the life being a wedding guest, just soaking it all up, no pressure. And yeah, it is like another job, to be honest, sometimes. Like it's very overtakes your life and can be quite overwhelming. Everything you have to organize and deal with in that time. So totally understandable.
Yeah, definitely. It's hectic.
And you've got a bit of a social media following, which love seeing what you get up to. But yeah, did you feel any pressure from social media or people's opinions and stuff for your wedding to be a certain way?
Nah, no. I was always gonna do like what I wanted to do slash what was normal in my family to do. So nah, I didn't. I mean, I love sharing my life online because like I just love connecting with people online. It's like super, it's like a hobby to me. So I was like super keen to get beautiful imagery in order to be able to share and stuff. But I was also keen to like get my posts up and then like close the chapter on the wedding to some degree. Yeah, no, I didn't feel any sort of way with that. We definitely weren't super keen to collaborate really with anything in that regard, because I didn't want the pressure of like make sure we're getting this shot and that shot. So yeah, we that was something from the get go that I was pretty keen to sort of just like this is going to be our wedding. We're just like doing what we want to do and we'll just pay for our wedding so that we don't have to think about that sort of thing.
Yeah, nice. That's good. Sounds like you have a really healthy attitude with it. And I guess being in that space for quite a while, you would, because I know a lot of people that struggle with the comparison or yeah, wanting to have this kind of Instagrammable wedding, but just yeah, do what suits you guys best, I think, and what reflects you as a couple is the best advice there.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's been so nice to chat to you today. Is there anything else you wanted to add or that we missed as we wrap up or say to engage people that are listening?
I don't think so. I'm just hoping I haven't come across too negative. I hope I'm not scared too
Not
many
at
people.
all.
But that is my experience as a bride. Super happy to be a wife. Love being a wife. Married life is so fun. And it's mostly so fun because I don't have to worry about planning a wedding anymore. But but yeah, I'm super stoked to be married. But however you get to that, if that's what you want, is gonna be beautiful. And yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. It's what we want to do, just share the realities on this podcast that it's not always smooth sailing or it's yeah, not going to be stress-free all the time. So, yeah, good to hear all the highs and lows and yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to chat.